to the taproom of truth, where the tales of social commentary never runs dry. This is the Real Shareholders Podcast. My name is Waimi. I am one of three of your hosts. By my left is Malachi, and by my right is Ubong. Say hi.
Thank you.
Welcome
You
to the show.
Thank you. Welcome, guys.
Anyways, I wasn't trying to be aggressive, but it was almost like you were just waiting for me to just,
Exactly.
Anyways, today we are seated with a very interesting, powerful man. He is a venture capitalist and an entrepreneur, and he is the managing director of Raiden Capital.
Yep.
None other than Segun Rex Adebanjo. At this point, this is where you guys clap. Actually clap.
Shrugs, you're welcome. Thank you for coming in. It's going to be a good day today. I can see it. I can feel it.
Yes,
So,
welcome.
before we get into the nitty-gritty, please, in a very short sentence, what does a venture capitalist do?
Oh, okay. I think people normally think of investing like when you want to sponsor enterprises. Typically, I think it's 4 stages to enterprises. Firstly, you typically get what are called angel investors. Those are your friends or rich uncles. Yeah. The venture capitalist is the first stage of organized capital, because venture capitalists sometimes also get money from limited other investors who trust them to invest their funds. And then they take risk on startup companies. They're the ones that usually incubate startup companies to a point where they are viable. And then when you then have a private equity fund, which has more capital, can outgrow it to scale. And then the investment bankers come in and take it to IPO.
Next level,
Right.
And
So
this is the
it's
public markets.
sort of big on reforms in a way.
On
Reforms.
Yes, it takes, for instance, if you have like a biotech or key tech, most of those companies, when you talk about the Silicon Valley companies, they all were initially funded by venture capitalist firms like Kleiner Perkins and things like that.
Oh,
But so what's it looking like in Nigeria? If you want to, what would you need to be a venture capitalist in Nigeria? Because you talk about capital, so it's money, right? Would you need a whole lot of money to be a venture, or can a group of people come in and say, okay, you know what, we want to be venture capitalists? How does that work?
Sure. Well, I think for the landscape in Nigeria, typically it takes someone who's probably succeeded in starting a successful company.
Okay.
So then other people for that track record now trust them with their own money to pick other opportunities. So he then goes to other wealthy individuals or even a pension fund or other investment funds. And then they give small amounts of money, and then he now picks out the viable startup companies to invest in.
Okay.
right. So I peeked into your bio, and it says you were an attorney for a while. How did that play out?
Well, that was good. I think I did philosophy initially in Ife.
Yes.
And then I went to England, I studied law.
Oh.
And then when I tried to come and practice here, I think we tried to talk about that. But that was when the Abacha coup happened.
Okay.
And lo and behold, for some reason, my spirit said I couldn't stay, that it was either, I couldn't live under a dictatorship. Either going to get killed or I have to kill the person. So the dictator, it was, because the concept was people don't have two heads. I just don't have the concept that some people should rule or dominate over other people. And I always feel like a man. You should stand up and assert yourself. So that's what, I guess, prompted me to move to the U.S. But when I went there, obviously, to practice in the U.S., I then did law school at Columbia. And then with that, I got into what are called Wall Street law firms. And so I did corporate law for about 7 years and things like that.
Okay. So you're saying you're a lawyer in Nigeria and in the US?
I'm a lawyer in the U.S.
In the
I don't
US,
practice in Nigeria. But I
okay.
came to Nigeria primarily to roll out, I guess what you call my savior complex. I brought 3 concepts I thought were key solutions to solving Nigeria's problems in education, security, power, and I can't remember what the 4th one was. But that's why I wanted to come to execute and roll out. And that's pretty much what I've been pursuing.
All right.
Right. It's been a lot of drama since Abacha's time till Tinubu's time. And Nigeria is still at a crossroad with quote-unquote big reforms. So every now and then when you turn on your TV or you pick up your phone, you hear reforms. This present government will tell you we are having big reforms. But the problem with that is there is a lack of trust. From your perspective as a venture capitalist, an entrepreneur, and a lawyer, what do you think we are missing in this whole thing?
I think fundamentally, the leaders haven't demonstrated understanding of the problem, because I think our initial leaders, our independents, had a better grasp of things, because you have to look at things in historical lenses.
Okay.
For about 600 years, the black race in Africa had its development stifled.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now you have to think about what we lost in that period. We lost, I've said this before, we lost the Renaissance, and you have to think about what's involved in the Renaissance.
Yeah.
The Enlightenment period, the Scientific Revolution, the Reformation, which is a radical thinking of religion, urbanization, and industrialization. So not only did we get held back, we missed advancement. So in total, it's almost as if we lost 1,200 years in development. So I keep saying you can't develop Nigeria until you develop Nigerians. So the only way to make Nigeria better is to have better Nigerians. And the way to do that is education. And we seem to just keep thinking you do agriculture, you do roads, infrastructure. No, you have to, man is the fulcrum of development.
I agree.
That's why we always miss it. And then everything gets better from that. And someone I think fundamentally understood that was Chief Awolowo. That's how you can see that. He wrote books, because those initial leaders, I think obviously because their competition was the colonial masters, they had to demonstrate capacity. So they thought through to show they could be better or equal to the leaders. Now, politics is like a career. You know, people go there and they get rich out of it. So the whole orientation is wrong, and they just throw token things at the people, saying, oh, let them eat. There's no concept of actually developing the people. And that's where I think we get it wrong fundamentally. Even when they just want to throw what they even call like palliatives, even that doesn't have thought behind it. You think about it. Okay, people are hungry. Why are you giving them rice, not protein? Because you think about the children. You think once there's already poverty in the land, you have to think about the children are going to be the ones suffering. And that mental retardation or retardation would seep in. So you have to address that first, so you don't create future problems that handicaps their future development. Give them beans, give them granules, if you want to even throw things at the problem. But right here, all we do is just, obviously the motivation is just different. It's really to just get money out of things. But that's why I keep getting frustrated that corruption is not even our problem. It's the stupid way in which corruption is being done. Because there's corruption in the US and all of that. If these governments invest in the people, we would have quadruple the revenue we have. That even when they steal, the people will still hail them. And they'll be heroes, they'll stay in government longer. So it's the ignorance and the stupid way the corruption is done and short-sighted way that is really the problem. Not the, I mean, obviously corruption is bad and that can be policed, but in magnitude of its impact, that's not the fundamental. It's our ignorance of not knowing how to put things together and develop that is really the fundamental problem we have.
We're speaking about the government. I was going to ask you that later on, but you already brought it forward. So our government, they're amazing at talking about change. We want to change this, we want to change that. But the results every single time feels the same. And we run a very interesting system. And I think sometimes when politicians, they do things, they don't necessarily think, or maybe they pretend not to think about the economic side of it. Is it because they just deliberately want to separate politics and economics? Because, I don't know, they just want to be politicians first and not think about the economic repercussions of things.
Well, you see, the thing, like I said, you have to understand the problem to be able to solve it. Nigeria, from its start, was already designed to fail.
Fair.
Okay? So, and the reason for that is because you think about it, we have what I call a Tower of Babel problem. The one way to stop human society's development is to divide them. Even God did it. As soon as human beings were doing this dramatic, we're just going to start speaking different languages. And that's what the English did. They've studied history. They deliberately brought us together, divergent tendencies, knowing that was going to be a handicap. Now, the only way to overcome that is with intellect. So you have to understand that that's why it all still comes down to education. That's the one thing that would seep into the economic development and also the societal development of us as a people. The reason why politicians can, their own ignorance of not understanding it is also because we don't have, even like you were talking about earlier, like the level of discourse in the society is so pedantic because the society itself is not developed enough to be engaged into enlightened discourse. And it wouldn't be everybody. You just need a critical mass that does that propels the society forward. Because even things like, you don't have discussion about, is anything we're doing making sense? The models we follow, every government since Obasanjo has been saying agriculture. Obviously, if that was the solution, we'll have solved it.
Yeah, sure.
That's not the issue.
Yeah.
You can do agriculture. Percentage in the US focused on agriculture is probably now down to like 3%. While in Nigeria, it's like almost 80% of us, and we still can't feed ourselves. So obviously, we have to understand that the fundamental propulsion of human development is reason.
Yeah.
Every single kobo, money, is a function of reason because it's that reasoning applied to nature and things that is value that money captures. So you need to understand this fundamentally, that if you're trying to create money, you're trying to create any kind of development, you need to start with developing your people's capacity to reason, and that's from which they can make things and solve their own problems, including agriculture, in a more optimal way. And I think so it's just misalignment of priorities, not understanding our fundamental impediments, which is our division, which we can overcome.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, we can talk about that as well. But you need to understand that we're deliberately designed to fail. So we need to think rational, have structures. And that's why these things like devolution of power matters. Because part of why we're so divided is because people feel insecure. If people have relative control over their destiny, I don't believe in any kind of breakup or anything, because if you really measure who we are as a people,
collectively,
it's amazing what we can be. People think Wakanda is just a movie. I see the creativity among our youth. That's what drives me. It's not so much as, yes, the poverty and suffering, which is so unnecessary, creates angst in me because it's just unnecessary. But also the prospect of what is possible. It's the brilliance of it is, if you really have a sense of it, I mean, you can just take the elements in each of the ethnic groups or even think of the nobility of like a Hausa man. So I am not one to say that, just go for breakup. Nor am I one to say, forget our differences and just go for one Nigeria. Because we've lost so much, we need something in the middle. Because we need to first go backwards, because we still need to consolidate on the things we've lost. We've lost so much of our history, and this is why I say we need to understand the problem. There's so much involved in that. You think about that. We didn't get into writing things until about 100 years ago. So a lot of our knowledge and things are oral. And we haven't done enough to capture that while we're already losing it. As much as there's a little bit of remnants of that left, whether it's in herbs, herbal cures and the science, even like I think IFA has quantum physics in it. Has anyone ever thought to study that? We need all the and I don't want, and there's still so many smaller ethnic groups that their culture might disappear if everyone's just speaking English and wearing Western clothes and on Instagram. We need to first have each person have kind of authority over that. So they go backwards, consolidate on it, and then we now have a looser union where we now act and move forward on things based on our common interests. And that can be done, and that would be just fantastic what the outcome would be.
All right, so you've really taken us on a voyage and and told us exactly what we would need to do if we need to come out of, where we are right now. But we're at the point presently, because I won't speak currently, we're at the point where there's a lot of agitation on the policies that the government is bringing.
Okay.
Because we're in 2025, and by 2026, the government says they want to bring in a new tax policy. Here's my first question, because we're going to really dive into that.
Okay.
My first question is, what would an increase in taxation do that the massive budgets, right? Because before now, let's take, for example, 2014, right? In our budget structure, you couldn't say, Nigeria is budgeting, 20 trillion in 2014, right? Okay. It was lesser than that. Today, it is within that scale. That's what we are budgeting, to implement. That's one. Two, we are borrowing massively to then fund the budget, right?
Right.
what would the increase in tax, what would the new tax law do to our budgeting? Would it say, oh, okay, you know what, we now have a new source of, revenue, right? We have a better source of revenue, so we don't need to borrow. What would that policy do that the borrowing has not done? That's what I'm trying to say.
Whether it's borrowing or whether it's taxation, the key thing, which is the thing is very against, is what you do with it.
Exactly.
What this government demonstrates seems to be what they call you can't give what you don't have.
Exactly.
One thing what the president, I think, has been known to be good at, especially with his legacy in Lagos, is revenue collection.
Yeah.
So obviously they're emphasizing on that. So I don't think the revenue, the taxation is necessarily in itself good or bad. It's how it's applied.
Yeah.
Right? If you, like I said, if you invest in the people, and it's a numbers game, and there are enough of us being productive. The problem now is that too few of us are productive, which is where I'm getting at.
I agree.
So for you to even try to get to certain revenue taxes, you're going to, the tendency is to overtax, and which then kills their own productivity.
Yeah.
So it's what I call like ass backwards. If you actually expand the scope of those who are productive,
That's the tax bracket then.
the tax bracket as in investing in the people, and
Yeah.
it can be easily done. Look, you think about it. Look at all of us here. How many things on us is produced in Nigeria, and it can be done. Whether it's from leather, there's so much need in Nigeria that there's no reason for us to have the unemployment levels that we have, because it's just about organizing. Even if people don't have any skill, upskill them. Say, okay, you 20 people, we're going to train you how to make houses for 15. Just create an ecosystem. You are making houses, you are making leather shoes, you are making furniture, you are making appliances in the house, things like that. I keep looking at a place like Alaba. I keep saying it. A place like Alaba really shouldn't exist. Those people should have been funded and invested in to produce those equipment in Nigeria. You think about the employment in that. So you create all of that around the country, whether it's leather from the north, creating all the things we need.
So those
You have
ecosystems like that.
silos all around the whole country. And there's a drive like that being undertaken by the government. But it's so slow. I know they're still gathering data 2 years in. It's not that hard. Just figure out the needs in here. Say, okay, what is our total need? And that's how every other country does it in planning. What is our total needs in food, in housing, in anything like that? And target it. But I don't think our governments think of our people as their real, you can even get into that as well, as the people to which they're stewards for, because they just seem to want to just pacify them, not really develop them and move them into the middle class. We keep following things like what I call like Western policies, where we think it's going to be trickled down. Look at the economic policies. They seem geared to have foreigners dominate our economy.
Exactly.
To create ports. They're trying to do rail and things like that. And every foreigner has an advantage in Nigeria because they can bring cheaper capital in, so that you and I can't do, even if it's just to open a restaurant, they can do it better because they have cheaper
the
funding.
capital,
And then everyone goes there, they get rich, and half that money goes abroad, and they fund other enterprises. We do roads. Even look at the Lagos Calabar toll road. In a place like China, and I used to travel to China a lot when I was doing the venture capital. So I was very close and watched their development. But as a lawyer, I know a lot of my colleagues who left the firm. China had to draw them back because they all went to Harvard, Columbia, and things like that. And they had to go, and there was so much demand.
They were Chinese, right?
Yeah, they were Chinese.
So China told them to come back.
Right? With different skill sets. People I went to school with in Colombia. So I understand. And when I was also doing business, I was in close relationship with a lot of construction companies. So what they did is, the first rail or power plant, they would bring a German firm to do that.
Yeah.
But then they would have like 10 Chinese company understudy that one German, and then spread them around the country to build their own 10
replicas.
You do that. And Dangote has done something similar. He just said it. He trained about 8,000 engineers. But what happened, as soon as his refinery was completed, there was no other major project to absorb them. And I keep going back to this. We need to understand the problem we're trying to solve. And it all has to be staged on with a proper foundation. For instance, once you solve security and you do things like agriculture, if you want to be industrial, you have to have iron and steel. And so that's why I keep saying, whoever is a presidential candidate, one of your cardinal things after he lists education, security, whatever, is to support Dangote and preserve him, because he's shown a track, and encourage him to go into iron and steel. Because you now use your iron and steel supported by rail. We need rail. It's not
Yeah.
roads we need. You're not
Yeah.
going to have enough road capacity to
Yeah.
meet our needs. We're
Yeah.
growing population that is exploding. It's going to overwhelm us soon,
Yeah.
which is what's creating security. So when you use rail, right, because there's so much, consumes so much iron and steel, so much comes fallout in. That's how you can make things. You've
Yeah.
already got the refinery producing petrochemicals. Once you have iron and steel supporting rail across the nation, there's nothing stopping our industrialization
Yeah.
as long as the people are trained
Yeah.
to maximize it. Again, like I keep saying, it's all about the intellect. Nvidia is is a company whose value is more than all the GDP of African countries.
Yes, it
it's all
is.
intellectual capacity. And I've mentioned this. Even if you invest in electricity, how that electricity matters depending on the quality of the caliber of people using it. I'm not putting down any area or anybody, but just take, for example, if you put electricity in my village or in Mushin, what they can do is different with what people can do in Silicon Valley because they're just, the capacities
Yeah.
are different.
Yeah.
And that is what is key that our governments don't seem to understand. The state of our education, you can measure the ability of a government, how good it is, or whether just see what its policy is on education. Even its economic policy, it's linked to education first. If it doesn't start from that, you can already tell this ones don't know what they're doing. That's why I keep saying, don't follow Western, IMF, World Bank, because their models are different and built for a different economy. They don't trickle down. They already have the capacity to absorb, even trickle down conceptually, which is still debated as a policy. We need to look closer to a place like China, where as bad as, or whatever you might say about communism and socialism,
Yeah, exactly.
one thing it did was it leveled the playing field where every Chinese person was educated and trained to their optimum capacity. And then you now leave it to free market to determine, because obviously you can't legislate equal outcomes. You want equal opportunity.
Yeah.
So that's really what the concept is. So that's how government, like I keep saying, it's about understanding what you're trying to solve for that would dictate your approach. So when you have the coordinating minister for the economy, he should be like an air traffic controller, moving, developing
Different bits.
indices to
Yeah.
help it build,
Yeah.
almost how you build, what's that game?
Puzzles or
Blockchain or things like
Roblox.
that. That they all
Roblox,
build on,
yeah.
exactly, they build on each other. So it makes it easier. So rather than you get 12 billion loan to go and try and build one road that now you have shanties and people sleeping on the road. It's already looking ugly and dirty. Why not? Because your people don't have housing. Their needs are not met.
Yep.
People will say, oh, it's Nigerians. How can you be garbage in, garbage out? Has anybody invested
In
in making them, not even housing, in the people themselves to be better?
Human capital.
You know? So why would they act different? So when you say Nigerians act like this, I'm like, have you seen your children? How you train them
Exactly.
is how
behave.
they will behave. So
I agree.
that's the first thing I think we always have to bring the conversation back to. And that's why I keep using Awolowo as an example. Because like I said, if you read any of his books, he started from man as the fulcrum of development. You have to understand that. It's not things, it's not anything else. It's man. Invest in man, start with a sound mind, which is education, and a sound body, which is health. That's why his primary things were free education, free health, and then full employment should be your concept for economics. Once you start from that, the idea is your goal is to have everybody gainfully employed. That way, everything is optimal. And that way, you can now get to your tax thing where rather than having to tax you 100, if I tax you 20, it's enough because you two are playing 20, 20, 20. So the numbers can do more.
The bracket is expanded. already.
Exactly. So once you have that as your thing, now where you even have gaps, whether your technology hasn't advanced, then you can import. Whether you need a loan, then you start to apply things to bridge. That's the orientation to how you should go towards either it's loan or increasing the tax revenue. It's just like I keep saying, I think is they act like they know what to do, but they don't act like they have understanding of what to do.
Okay, so you've mentioned the IMF, for example, a lot of times. And so how will you assess this current administration's so-called reforms by removing fuel subsidy, and the tax thing, and then the unification of the the
So-called unification.
unification of,
Right.
Of the foreign exchange.
foreign exchange. So how will you assess this in the past 2 years?
Well, I think I was on the show and I said when President Tinubu leaves, he needs to give me the number for his babalawo because I think the guy works. Because what he gets away with,
His work rate is insane.
is incredible. Because take fuel subsidy, for instance. The number one person that opposed removal of the subsidy during Jonathan was him.
Tinubu, yeah.
Yeah.
And now he comes and touts it as, whoo-hoo, I'm a
It's gone.
magical reformer. Like, okay, how'd you get away with that? Two, when they did the multiple exchange FX regime,
Yeah.
who brought Buhari in that did it? Are you telling me you couldn't have told Buhari for years that this is a dumb policy? You simply reverse that, and another who look how great I'm doing. How is that? First of all, and then the third is restructuring,
Yeah.
which is what we need. Again, he was the number one person objecting to it.
Exactly.
So now my own issue is that's fine. For some reason, he understands Nigeria, and I give him credit for
Yeah,
that.
he does.
Whatever he has achieved is remarkable for how long he plotted his exit there. He knows he met the people where they are. You see, people like
Yeah,
Awolowo
exactly,
were idealists.
Exactly.
They try to make the people better. And that's a kind of a debate. I
Maybe,
think
sorry to cut. Maybe do you think maybe the level of discourse at that time would have made somebody like an Awolowo be more open to criticism, open to allowing, his ideals. So he's trying to sell his ideals, but then if the people are not well equipped, brain wise, it will be like, oh, okay, we're just trying to sell something to these people. Like you said, I think what is happening now is that he has met the people where they are. Like he planned that these people were going to be at this point in time a lot more less educationally advantaged, a lot more less informed, right? Unlike maybe during Awolowo's time, where before he could say, one or two things, some other people, were coming up to say, hey, sorry, this your ideology doesn't, it doesn't, it's not right. Akintola was tackling him here and there. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right now, it's looking like they're having a field day.
well, two things. First of all, we're actually more educated, at least literate, than
Okay.
when I was there.
Okay.
You need to understand that. The difference is what you're describing, that you're meeting the people where they are, is not leadership. You're supposed to lead your people from where they are to a better and idealistic. That's what Awolowo did.
Okay.
Yes, you're correct that the climate with Awolowo, because they were coming from a legacy, and that's one thing I think in the Southwest, I think among the Yorubas, is we have a little bit of a cultural debate now, because we have a legacy of that idealism and what we call Omoluabi ethos.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there was that other, we have tendencies. I think in the Southwest we have about 2, maybe in the East they have about 3 or 4, I calculate. In the North, 3 as well. So you have to also plot Nigeria's politics following the tendencies. And it also dictates where they think the alignment should be. For instance, Awolowo always wanted to align with the East, while the Akintola branch thought it was better to compromise with the North.
Yeah.
So, and with that goes also fundamental philosophies about whether you take education as primary and things like that. So to get to what you're saying, it's not that, to me, this is my issue with why I will find President Tinubu's tenure disappointing, is if he ends up only doing small things. Because it is really disappointing if he took all that time in his life to achieve what he did. You could say, because he's at the cusp of being either our greatest president of a generation or just the most disappointing black man ever. I'm serious, because what he has achieved is remarkable. 250 million, and this is the first time we've had a president who's achieved that post on his own metal. And he pretty much has what I call a dictatorship now, because your House of Rep is not accountable to you. The minute they collected Prado cars, you had already lost them, and none of you did anything. You didn't recall all of them. They're supposed to be representing the people. How many of the people they represent have Prado cars? So how are you supposed to feel what the people feel and represent their angst? We don't understand. Okay, I keep saying it's about understand. Even the democracy we practice, we don't understand it. It's so fundamental that your House of Rep person is so key. You're supposed to control that person, because that's one unit where you can all unite on. Wherever that rep constituency, you're unlikely to be divided across religion, ethnicity.
Yeah,
At least you can unite there and say, you know what, We are nominating you, but once you mess up, we will recall you. Use the recall provision in the Constitution until he does what you want. That is your lever to control the president. So that's why the House of Rep member, not even the Senate, is so key. But President Tinubu, for some reason, he has marshaled the House, and some say the judiciary, everything. So he has almost the power of a Roman emperor. Now the question is, what are you going to do with it? Is it just
With all
to
that
drive
power.
in a convoy of cars, or you're going to transform your race of people? We're really what's called a fatherless nation.
Yeah.
There's an author, Ogun, he wrote this book,
Yeah.
Fatherless Nation and Culprits. And I
Exactly.
commend it to a lot of people to read.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there you can actually see where the colonialists, the British, deliberately looked at models from North Africa to make the design Nigeria to fail, to be
Oh, really?
divided. Absolutely. They
Yes.
studied it. They just, they knew what they were doing, and they knew where to stage the power blocks, including whether it's getting the North or the Fulani and things like that. And by the way, don't look at that as something to say, oh no, we should be against Fulani. Absolutely not. It's about, there's so much, all of us, and the fortunate thing is, it's almost like America. The great thing we can do out of our diversity, from whether it's Fulani, Igbo, Yoruba, is what our generation and younger need to focus on. It's not about dividing anybody. It's bringing the strength and the color and the richness and the various inputs from all of that to make it work, because we can't. Now we're going to turn the
Tide, right?
the tide on them. They thought they were doing us bad,
Yeah.
right? And now we're
Yeah,
going to turn into a fantastic, what I call Wakanda. So when I was saying about being a fatherless nation, is like, which I think Tinubu needs to, I would hope, would start. You never know. You never know.
Sorry.
You know,
It's
you
2 years
to-
into I got.
I know. That's why I
Yeah,
said
it's
to
2 years
speak out.
in. Yeah.
Initially, when he came in, I didn't vote for him. I supported Peter Obi. But I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I'm really a Democrat. If the people have spoken, it
Let's
ends
leave it at
there.
that.
And it's like, as you lay your bed, so you lie on it. Because a lot of this, I have no problems with Tinubu. It's Nigerians I have a problem with.
Yeah.
Because he's entitled as a man to pursue whatever ambition he has. It's you that, from those negotiations, whoever lets him get away with it.
Yeah.
Now you carry,
Not true.
that's who bears the responsibility.
I agree.
So and he would only react to what you check him on. But as a person as well, I mean, like you say, the concept of like philosopher kings, where you actually think about your legacy, and you want people to remember you're moving your own people. That's why I think we need Nigerian fathers. And like I said, I'll commend Obasanjo, but I disagree with him in thinking, oh, let's just forget our differences. I'm more like Saudana. Let's understand it and then solve for it with inputs, whether it's state police, devolution of power, that mitigate the friction points, then allows us to come together more in a more...
So where it works, it works. Where it doesn't work, we fit in. Yeah.
Look, it's the way the English, French, Germans fought for centuries. They can make the EU and things work. We have never even fought among ourselves
agree.
before all this.
Yeah.
So how is it we can't talk through and say, you know what is causing the problem?
Yeah.
And we can talk to things. For instance, whether it's this Lagos is no man's land thing between Igbo and Yoruba, they're all solvable, discussive issues. And say,
agree.
what is the issue? Okay, what are the things you need to feel less threatened? What is it you want that compensate? Okay, how do we? It's just about once we sit at the table before independence. That's what our forefathers,
Did.
founding fathers
Yeah.
did, and they solved things, gave us different constitutions that made it work before the army came and screwed it
destroyed
all
it. I
up. So
agree.
there's no reason, and I don't know why that enterprise doesn't go on again, where you bring people to the table, say, okay, we can always bicker to death. We're like crabs in a barrel. And we can see what we're fighting for is crumbs. I just told you, it's a $42 billion economy for 250 million people. That is pathetic.
It is.
That is pathetic.
It is.
You know, if we marshal our collective brain power to solve for these things, and that's when Tinubu says, yeah, $1 trillion economy, it's a no-brainer. We can do it, but I don't see the steps being done to get us there. He can't show me any policy, whether it's removal of subsidy, whatever, anything they're doing now, other than maybe the things like the NEL fund and the credit thing. But I'll say how that again is a problem, because it's not on the scale and dynamism to be transformative.
Okay.
You know, those are the problems with the way they do this thing. It doesn't seem as if they
Just looks
lack.
like a stopgap. Yeah.
It's almost as if it's a move in the right direction. But you see, let me take something like the NEL fund, and I can come back to this fatherless nation thing because it's important. That NEL fund is a fantastic idea to reform and transform education. because it should. If the number of amounts deployed to it, rather than do 12 billion in toll road, I will put that all in nail fund. And you do this. Every university should now have the resources to hire the best professors from all over the world.
Yep.
Because the students can pay for it. So particular universities, you bring everybody is the best Nigerian. When you finish with the Nigerians, I used to have lecturers in Ife in philosophy that came from England because we could hire them.
True.
So you just hire them. Students are going to pay for it from their future income. So that way you bring the best from China. We need to catch up quick and reform the curriculum, thinking about the future. Obviously, everyone knows about AI and things like
stuff,
that.
yeah.
But when you're saying it's 500,000, how many 500,000 in Naira is a university going to marshal up to be able to pay and compete with the medium university in the
Ghana.
US or anywhere to attract
in South
the
Africa.
best professors?
Yeah.
So that's what that NEL fund should be focused on. Like, does it trigger that outcome?
So you would have suggested, instead of the 12 trillion for Lagos Calabar, we just put that into NEL fund and really make it a big deal.
110%.
Fantastic.
Put it into NEL fund. Like, once you start with that foundation, encourage states to also improve their secondary schools, local government to improve the primary schools, because, like I keep saying, you need to understand the problem. The mental capacity of a human being develops best from the ages of 2 to 5. We don't do anything in education. It's called pre-K learning. That's the most critical education period. And I keep saying, I think I'm moving around the place, but bear with me. For instance, every market should have all these containers to have a creche where market women can just check in their children and be watching educational programs. And maybe they'll pay you 500 naira a day or something, so that these people have a fighting chance for the future and things like that. So local government should do things like that. States should improve the secondary schools for STEM classes. China graduates like...
So your thought process is that if we did the NEL fund, we should then trickle it down
To the
state,
common man.
to the common state government.
No,
the
NEL fund
local
is really
government.
focused on the university level.
Yeah,
So
that's
that
what
should
I'm
be
saying.
focused on making sure that, for instance, your physics department in the universities, the engineering are the best, because we want to compete with the world. So it's not so much every department. So if you're going to study philosophy like me, philosophy is actually critical. But let me say, if you're going to study some other not STEM course, what you pay might be cheaper.
Yeah.
But what you pay for engineering might be higher because you're hiring the best, and you need more equipment.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
need to
to solve a
resource
problem.
the department better. But it's worth it, because there and that's why I thought Tinubu was good at. He's good at placing incentives or engineering an outcome without doing all the. And this is where he could have applied that well. And I think they're not doing enough there. If they actually put more resources to it, you could really transform education. And we need to, especially to catch up, to be able to do things. That's one.
Yeah.
Secondly, go ahead.
Well, would this also translate to the weaponization of poverty?
That's out there that people accuse all governments of doing and weaponizing poverty. I honestly don't even know what to think about it, because it's so short-sighted. Like I said, if you weaponize poverty, it's going to end up and catch you with people running the streets of Jiga carrying rocket launchers. So there is no outcome there where you win. Which is why I keep saying all we do is so short-sighted that we don't seem to understand the problem. Like, okay, fine, you do this, it meets your short-term interest. Rather, if you had invested in these people, like I said, you would have a richer economy. And there's smarter ways, even in America, there's smarter ways to benefit from your own policies, that you would make the money and still be a hero to your people.
Yeah.
Even look at Trump, he's still a hero today. His children, everybody, they're still benefiting for various things he does. It's not so much an outrage. If that's the kind of corruption we're having,
It'd be nice.
People, at least it would be something where eating over that man pulled
talking
another
about
fast
it.
one. It's not so desperate. Now we're like crabs in a barrel, where the small they're stealing is really like food from our stomachs.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so harsh and, like I said, short-sighted. So weaponizing poverty, again, like I said, it's really just their own ignorance they're showing, is my view on that.
Going back to the reforms.
You're hammering on it.
Yes, of this government. It's biting hard on the citizens.
It
The
is.
common man out there
It is.
can barely afford 3 square meals nowadays.
Yeah.
You know, inflation is at an all-time high, you know, and all that. It's basically crazy out there. What do you think this government can do to ease the pressure? Is there anything they can do, or you feel
Oh
is
yeah,
there-
to me, I think there are quite a number of things they can do. Like I said, you have to aim for full employment. Take mining, for instance. We should have a mining boom, not corporate mining like they're doing. They keep focusing on just the big guys and they're keeping too much to themselves. If you open one huge mining field, for instance, and you allow any Nigerian just go there and prospect for gold on your own and sell it to the government, right? That would take away some of the pressure. At least people feel they're controlling their destiny. You know, they can make money. You need to open up the economy in a way where people can take control of their own destiny. The government keeps trying to do things for people. What you need to do is empower people to be able to do things for themselves. That's the key. So those are the things you have to think about. Open, for instance, secure a whole big mining area and say this is a legitimate way. You come in, you register, you wear a tag, you even pay tax. If you're lucky, you find any gold, you sell it to the government. They either sell it abroad or they use it as gold reserves to strengthen the naira, which are things I advocate. So those are things like that. And then you do those things I talked about of nationally, figure out what we need and engage everybody to be employed. Every unemployed he's in one group or the other. You know, and you can do it now easily online, digitally. Every local government, you just sign up. Okay, I want to do carpentry. I want to do this. And print money to pay them. Now, they will now buy other goods and it would fund it. That's how you have an ecosystem where everyone is now thriving. So there are solutions to these things that can be done. They just have to have the mindset of not just pacifying the people and throwing palliatives at them, which are short-sighted, right? But are really things that are sustainable.
True.
And those are the kind of results we want.
So basically, I mean, you've really gone, you've taken us on a real journey because I've just been looking at you really, you know, trying out all these ideas. You had an idea. You had an idea that I saw last year about the FAC policy that we have.
Correct.
And then you talked about how we could domicile the dollar, right, directly to the state government and the local government rather than how we, you know, take the money to the center, right, and then share it down in naira and
Correct.
how it affects, you know, the naira devaluation that you're trying to do right now.
Correct.
Please, could you expand on that, one? And secondly, is it being done? Did anybody even perchance listen to what you said and said, you know what, this makes sense, let's try to do this?
No, it's not been done.
Okay, first.
So what I propose is when they do FAC, what they do is the CBN figures out how much each state gets and takes the dollar and this only applies to dollar receipts, not like naira tax revenue.
Yeah.
The dollar receipts, I'm saying it should be allocated to the states, not given to them. It should be allocated at least to their CBN account.
Yeah.
So what happens is because they have a lot of their own expenses in naira, they are now forced to buy naira, right? So that creates demand for the naira, of course, which raises the value of the naira. I say that's a better way to price the naira than the CBN going through what it calls, it does like a market auction. It says, okay, how much do the states need? Oh yeah, banks, how much dollar do your customer need?
Yeah.
Well, the banks, as we know, are just currency traders.
Yeah.
They don't really price the naira based on need. They price it based on how much they think the CBN has.
I agree.
You know, where everybody say, CBN is going to run out of money. The dollar goes up. And things like that. So it's not real pricing, a real price discovery. So it's to mitigate against that one. And obviously all the fact that you think about it again. Now the CBN has decided that you have $100. It now converts that $100 to what? Now let's just use 1,500. You get the equivalent of that in naira. You now take that naira, you now get all kinds of contractors. They now need to buy raw materials for whatever contract you give them, which is back in dollar. They now have to buy back the dollar you initially had at a higher rate because, of course, it's going to be higher, right? Over time. So that creates demand, artificial, which is what I call phantom demand for the dollar, which should not have been there. While if the states were the one who were just allocating that dollar to their contractors. And this is not that the state should have the dollar.
Like have cash, right?
No.
That's
It's still with the CBN. It's just the state now. Hey, CBN, not my account with you. Give this.
We get $10,000.
Yeah, give this guy $10,000. That guy is not going to collect $10,000. All the same way they do else is just say,
Yes.
I want you to buy from this vendor in
Yeah.
America. Pay him for me. So there is no new demand
Yes.
for dollar that undermines the naira. So you then don't have excess naira, first of all, in circulation, which undermines the value of the naira. And what is most damaging about that is that it doesn't have people have faith in holding the naira as a store of value. So you don't have a savings culture in naira, which then affects what you call like investors like me, venture capital, who can now use that money to now fund enterprises which create employment. So it's like a vicious circle
It is.
undermining our economic development. That's the point.
So what is happening presently? Of course, I want listeners to, what's happening presently? What are they doing? Why are they not doing what you're doing? But let's not even go to why they're not doing. What's happening? How are they splitting the money presently?
Well, they do the way, like I just said, what they do is the CBN will change it on your behalf, tell you what the rate is and give you the naira. And of course, like we know, every time they allocate FAC, the naira depreciates because everybody now wants to change that naira into dollar because they don't have faith in the naira. So it's all that gradually undermines the naira. And I wrote an article about it where I said Tinubu let the naira breathe.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's the point I was trying to make because it's like two arms of government are not working in the same tandem. The CBN is doing a great job trying to mop up naira, but at the same time, more naira is coming to the system with wasteful government spending.
Yeah.
I think it's just like the two arms of government are not working in tandem. So the fiscal side is, I think, really where the challenge is, which is why I just say we're not doing that work. Or we're doing the finance ministry part is okay. Is it coordinating the economy to make sure that it's productive that I think is not properly coordinated. So where the CBN is reducing that.
So where the monetary policy is working, the fiscal policy is not matching it.
It's not doing. So it's almost as if we're almost. So where we should be running 100 meters, we just ran maybe 20. So you see marginal progress, but not the dynamic progress to make us transformative. And the problem with this is, with our rising population and level of problems, we can't do token things. We need to be dynamic. We really need transformative things because otherwise it's going to collapse on all our heads. I mean, very soon, if the level of hunger and starvation, then you start having insecurity, you have a breakdown in society, and then we all suffer. You know, that's why I think this is so important because it's going to affect generations to fix. Once it really cracks, we might end up in like Somalia, you know, women get vulnerable. There's so much at stake that it's not something to just be like, definitely don't want to be someone looking like I'm a government critic. No, I'm shouting an alarm like, please fix this. If Tinubu does this, he'll be my hero. You know, I don't really care. It's not partisanship or anything like that. I just care, you know, that these young people, they're not facing a great future. Because I'm not seeing anything now that 5 years, 10 years from now, we say that either they move to the middle class or their problems are easier because it might all implode and the rest of the world has left us behind. It's really dramatic. And like I said, it's the way the government goes about these things. They just don't show understanding enough that would transform the problem. Because like I said, they have good policies like the NEL Fund, or the credit one is another good one where I said they haven't thought it through. That credit thing is a fantastic idea, which again can transform the economy. But they haven't studied the elements that make it work. You need a solid judiciary and enforcement system. Because if I'm going to lend money, say, okay, go and buy this camera and equipment you need, but only pay 10 kobo every day. I have to know that there's a system that when you don't pay, you have a valid house address, and I can go into court within 6 months to get my money back. Not that it would take 5 years in litigation, and I have to bribe police to go and enforce it. And so obviously it would just be only if you're employed where your company pays into that bank. It would just be limited in its effect. That's why I can say you have to fix. There are fundamental things you have to spend the money on rather than toll road. Education, the judiciary. You have to incentivize. How can judges be writing so much? They all don't have law clerks or stenographers.
Exactly.
And things like that. That
And
can
it's
make judgments
2025.
quicker. And with AI, you should even have so many things that match pleadings. so that you get judgments like that. So that
He's a lawyer. I
justice,
mean,
justice is quicker, so that you don't get people get frustrated with the system and carry arms like Boko Haram. It all links to these fundamental things. A lot of these bandits, they stole their cows. They couldn't go to a court and get recompense.
Yep.
So just said, screw it.
took it
And
in
and that's almost natural, right? Man is like water, would find
It's
a
level.
breakthrough. So if we don't understand the problem we're trying to solve for, it's going to be hard for us to actually solve for it.
Okay, foreign direct investment has been very poor, very abysmal in the past few years. In fact, there has been capital flight. Companies are leaving Nigeria, for one reason or the other and all that. So, what do you think foreign direct investment not coming in? Companies not, despite the fact that this current government has tried to do the part, of the IMF by removing subs, doing everything they want.
Yeah.
Yet these
Yeah.
foreign companies are not coming in. What do you think is the problem?
Because they haven't laid the groundwork. Like I said, you have to understand. Look, in the world today, the world is flush with capital. People are begging for investments to put money to. It's whether it's buyer or seller's market.
yeah, it's
Right? There's so much capital in the world. There's so much wealth.
Yes.
But we haven't created a climate, and I think of it almost like a venture capitalist, to make it make sense for people to come and invest in it. Like I just said, the court system. If I put capital here, and for me and no matter how much due diligence I do, things might go wrong. If I have to get justice, and it's going to take me 5 years, how will I justify it to my investors that I put money in that market? So you keep seeing our presidents, once any president comes and says he's flying around to attract foreign, you don't need to do that if you do the right things. The only investors you attract are vultures, and that's what we have.
That's for
The people who
portfolio
come,
investors, yeah?
that you have entice them with this stupendous high interest rate on your bonds
exactly.
that is going to catch up with you. That's why I say it's just kicking the can down the road, because those ones, they are hot, what they call hot money.
Yeah, hot money.
As soon as they know that things about it, they take all that and then compound your problem, create social strife. You now have to go to another round of devaluation. They say, oh, we're trying to reset. We've been resetting since Babangida when we did SAP.
And go.
It's because we're not still getting it right. You have to do those fundamentals. Fix the judiciary, fix security, things like that. Like I said, this fact thing of giving people faith in the Naira, where there's a savings culture, where people invest even in our own money in ourselves. Employ people, have more people be optimal, so that there's a market here. You look at the investments that are coming in oil and gas, products that sell abroad. That's why I keep saying we keep creating an economy. When anyone comes, they just want to say, you have minerals now, we'll just take it
Take one.
cheap or discount and sell it to the international market, not things that benefit your own society and people. So it's like I keep saying, it's just lack of understanding. It's all ass backwards. So it's just, if we can get it right, we will get it right. If you want a better Nigeria, you have to have better Nigerians invest in people.
You once wanted to contest for presidency, or at least you were a presidential aspirant for. Was it the Youth Party now?
I was trying to get onto the.
Okay,
I wasn't the aspirant.
You were not there yet, but
Yes.
you were almost aspiring.
You had an
Right.
interest.
You had an interest. So, do you still nurse that interest right now?
Okay, interesting. It wasn't even an interest.
Okay.
I did that to be provocative.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
I wanted a platform to talk about what I thought needed to be spoken about. And that was the best way to garner attention, where you can have a press conference and say, because then I was outraged. Buhari had just ordered his chief of army had just slaughtered Shiites. Whatever crime the Shiites has done, we need to understand those things are just wrong. You can't say because some people are around there and cross your street, you
I agree.
slaughter how many thousand
No,
people?
they said
They blocked the
They-
way of
they-
them.
Yeah,
They touched the
they
chest
touched
of-
the chest of the general.
Wow.
That was it.
You
That was
see?
it. That's
Even worse. So
it.
that mindset, I thought, was just outrageous. And if we can't check our leaders on things like that, obviously they would only do worse things.
Yes.
And that was in. And look, I am one who believes in equity, fairness, and justice. At that time was the time of the North. I didn't think realistically I wanted power to shift. I really respect that notion that
tides.
we're trying to. If we're trying to build a nation, we have to respect these things.
Definitely.
You know that, and I keep coming back to this thing about us being a fatherless nation, because we need to unite. The reason why our country is a mess is because we don't hold our leaders accountable. The reasons why we can't hold them accountable is because we can't unite. If we could unite and they wouldn't divide us around whatever is religion, all these problems will be solved in no time, because it's easy for us to know we all know what good is and what bad is, and we'll call it out. But when it's a Yoruba man there, Yorubas have hesitancy about criticizing, and it's real politics, because it matters. You can understand the logic of why they act like that. So it's all of us to know that, look, what goes around comes around. Let's figure out something where that is not the issue, right? The things we have consensus on, whether it's education, health, security, let's at least agree on those things and work together and say, whoever is in power, wherever, this is what you must do. At the minimum, 60% should be spent on education. This thing where they call about restructuring, for instance, they say, some people say it's because the North, why would they, first of all, the North shouldn't lose in any way in a restructuring if you apply sense. The reason why maybe the North is not pulling as much of its weight is education. There's a lower education bracket there.
Yes.
Okay, so maintain the same revenue they're getting, but just structure it so that any amount of that revenue that is more than they would have been normally entitled to based on derivation, as in what they produce, should be spent to education, because that way you're compelling them to bridge the concept of their freeloading.
Exactly.
So even if it's over 20 years, it's at least solving the problem. So once you do that, the South should be okay, yes, take the extra money, because it's in our interest that you do well. When you do well, you're a market also for our goods. You can also sell things. It's a win-win for all. So you just have to think about these things as a collective, not as a hostile negotiation where it's you win and I lose, because we skip spending money on things like NYSC, saying we are building a nation. Yet, we now have political parties like this. For instance, people blame the APC for stoking divide between Igbos and Yoruba.
Yeah, true.
So how can you say, first of all, you're a president of a nation, if your people feel is in their vested political calculation to undermine these two groups uniting?
Yeah.
And it's deliberate. I was so outraged when I read that I think there was some Igbo lady who wanted to do an exhibition on Owambe.
Yeah, sure.
Something we
trending.
should
all come together to promote.
That's what NYS is about. You learn about others and appreciate each other's culture. And that became a notion for friction. And that affected the generation that is coming. It was on Twitter. I was like,
it was on Twitter.
This is
it's still a big deal.
I was like,
it's
so bad. And the president didn't speak on it. So I'm like, it's one of two things. He's not aware, which shows he's clueless to what affects 80% of the people he leads.
No, sorry to cut in. I think Lagos State, I think the...
No, even Lagos did not say anything. It was
the
Oba of Lagos.
No. I think it was the essay on culture and tourism or something. Because I know the girl went to meet the essay fellow, right? And then the guy made a very long tweet about cultural appropriation.
Well, you see...
What's that guy's name again? My guy, if you remember the guy's name, please drop it on the comment section. That guy said something about the girl trying to appropriate the culture.
So you see, the thing is, I'm saying, even whatever the debate is, the fact that it led to our youth hurling insults and derision against it, the president should have come together. These are your children. To say, this is bad. Don't do this. So that's why I say it's either he was unaware, which is really bad, which was his clueless. Because if you look at the stats, 85% of Nigerians are 44 years and younger.
Yeah.
Okay? And these are the things that they're being inculcated with. So that means they are propelling our problems now into the future. So it's either he's unaware. Two, he's aware, and if he's aware, he needs to speak on it. If he's aware,
I just remember the guy's name,
and he doesn't speak about it, honestly, then he should be ashamed of himself. That means he sanctions it. Because then how you're a father of a nation, still even funding NYSC, what's NYSC going to achieve when you give it one hand and take it back with such a fractious thing? And I'm not saying it's his fault. You have to be clear. His responsibility is my point.
Yeah, true. All right, so let me just quickly butt in on the foreign reserves that we're going to talk about.
Right.
Why is it being touted as economic prosperity when it is just borrowing dollars that we're doing? Why is it being touted? Why? Because that's you see these things. The government is talking about foreign reserves.
The foreign reserve is increasing.
Its foreign reserve is increasing.
It shows that the economy
the economy is prospering. But then I can ask the people who are behind the cameras. We're really feeling it, and this is just borrowed dollars. What are we on about?
Well, let me explain. How this works is, like I said, it's about our understanding of things. Their outlook is towards the West that borrows them so much money. So the question is whether you have enough to pay, whether it's 3 months, 11 months of your imports. So because if you don't, it's almost like a banker looking at your balance sheet, like, are you a worthy creditor? So all they're happy about is that, they're good creditors now, even though some of that is kind of weird because I think some of the reserves is included money they borrowed and things like that. So of course that applies to, I mean, don't get me wrong, like I keep saying, the CBN and all of that, they're doing what they should be doing. They want is to balance the books, fiscal management, give the floor, the naira some floor and reduce inflation. And again, that's another thing I've always advocated. Our CBN mandate is just one-sided. It's about reducing inflation. And that's why they now raise interest rates to ridiculous levels that enterprises can't borrow money. How are you going to grow your economy if the real economy can't be financed?
Yeah.
It should be dual, like the US, where it's full employment and inflation. So you balance the concept of making sure you get there. So the foreign...
So employment and then inflation. And
your target should be full employment and reducing inflation to its minimum.
That should be the target of the CBN.
Yes.
All right, great.
While in Nigeria, it's only one side. If you go to the US, the CBN is always balancing to, would I raise interest rate too much that will create unemployment? Then that's a
good
temp.
Good.
Or if this employment is this economy is too hot, that there'll be inflation. So you have to, that's really what the task should be.
I get it.
But we miss that here in Nigeria. And I think that foreign reserve thing, like again, is just, obviously, like you all know, the poor man on the street doesn't feel it. Because in the US, things like that would matter because if your foreign reserves are high, your interest rates should drop, people should be able to get mortgages, housing will boom, construction will boom, employment will boom. So I say with us, it's I don't know. I don't know whether it's just complete. It can't be idiocy. I still haven't cracked that issue about what is why can't you just do it? Because like I said, you'd be richer if you do it.
Yeah.
You can steal more safe. There's more money.
There'll be more money.
There's incentive to what you want to do.
You're popular. They will hail you on the street. They will build statues for you. Your children will have a good name when they grow up.
Yeah.
Not that they'll be needing security everywhere they go. You know, these things matter.
Yeah.
So just think in a bit more enlightened, not short-sighted. And I think that's just been the bane of the black man. And it's really my own embarrassment that as a black man, we really haven't done enough either to protect our women or our children and stand up enough as ourselves. And I've tried to even appeal to our women to actually deny all men sex as well. Maybe
that will help, right?
up, because that's probably the way to reset our brains. But our women self are fighting among themselves.
So anyway, my final question, another personal one. So for those of you who don't know, this is the son of the famous nationalist, because your father was a nationalist, at least to the best of my knowledge. I wanted to just take you back a little. I recently watched an interview where I had a very well-respected Yoruba statesman, Chief Bisi Akande, who said that their friend Ifere died. Their friend Ifere, the group itself, died when Bola Ige died. Meaning, Bola Ige died in 2001. That he died that day he died. And that any other extension you've seen within that period has just been people trying to resurrect the dead. Your dad was the leader of the Afenifere, at least to the best of my knowledge, before he died. Do you hold the same opinion?
I think you have to put what he said in context. Okay. Obviously, I don't hold it. Afenifere still exists today, and it has, although they have a splinter group, but it has a leadership under Chief Olaiton, who succeeded my father. And when I keep talking about tendencies in Yoruba land, the splinter groups represent tendencies. So there's a tendency that tries to uphold the legacy of Chief Awolowo, progressive politics, welfarist policies. Those are their own mantras. Which is, I guess, part of President Tinubu's, what people call his craftiness, or you call his political strategist in terms of 49 laws of power or whatever. It was his interest to divide the Afenifere at that time because of obviously when you have all these old men who could tell you what to do, it was limiting what else you wanted to do. And so he funded factions. And what Chief Akonde is pointing to is what, I guess my point, that united you stand, divided you fall.
Yeah.
Because they were divided, they weren't as strong anymore. So the Afenifere didn't have its cachet and metal like it did just before that time after. Because right from Chief Bolade's time, that's when they had said to have division. Because when Chief Bolade wasn't the presidential candidate, there was a little bit of function.
There was.
You would always have that. But Afenifere didn't die. It's almost someone saying the Democratic Party is dead today, or the Conservative Party in England. It goes through periods
like a rebirth.
and a rebirth. And those who hold strong to its ideals would usually triumph over time, where people come, when they say when you stand on truth, it moves around and people come around to where you are.
Yeah. Okay. So that's what you.
Yeah, it's not dead.
It's not dead.
It's just not as vibrant as it used to be.
But is it coming back up? Is
It
this
is.
like a
There's
transition?
definitely young, dynamic people. I mean, Dave Farrow to
Oh yeah, I do. I know.
Afenifere.
He was here.
There's Justice Falloye there, and we need to bring a younger generation into it, understanding. I think they're doing that now, selling it to a younger generation, because you have to understand that people think Afenifere is a cultural organization for the Yorubas. It's really not. It really was a political party. It's just when you translate the ideology of that political party into Yoruba, it means Afenifere. So when they were explaining, because like I said, at independence, people weren't as educated. So when Awolowo was campaigning in the local areas, the way he broke it down, he said, I did for you, you did for me. The welfare where I want for myself, now I want for you. So it was
Afenifere.
It was, so it was just something
Nice
like
breakdown.
Yeah, I still have plans of joining, but yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
That's a story for another
No,
day.
but it matters because there's so much to learn from. I think Chief Awolowo, I look at him as on the level of any philosopher king. I mean, this is one person who really wrote books thinking out his economic philosophy. And this is regardless of what partisan or whatever you're in. Just look at him as a person, not think about him as leader of Yorubas or anything. Honestly, there's just so much to learn from him.
People have compared him to Tinubu. Do you think that's a
No. I mean, look, President Tinubu has his credit for a modern era.
Yeah.
But it's like trying to, how do I equate it? You see, they're timeless leaders. I think there used to be Marcus Aurelius of Rome and things like that. These are not just people who are good administrator or good president or something. When you think about philosophically where they thought of, it's almost like someone who's combined Plato with Lee Kuan Yew. If you think about that.
True.
You've thought about the philosophy of the state.
Yep.
A lot of people don't understand, like I keep saying, don't understand the landscape you're trying to solve for. He did that. He studied Nigeria. That's why I said Nigeria is just a geographical expression. If we want it to work, we need to do federalism and true federalism. Not because we don't like this, but it's the way to bring all of us together. And the natural alliances, which is the thing I was talking about, like people don't even understand that in Nigeria, people like Igbo, Yorubas, a lot of the groups in the Middle Belt and the Hausas, are indeed, they all have the same common heritage, typically, and they all have the same cultural heritage, which is what they call Ifa, Aha, in different religions. So do you understand? There is that already natural affinity, which is why I've always said, look, the reason I like Restruct and I want an alliance, you should have a South and Middle Belt alliance, not as a hostile group
Opposition
to the
against the
north,
North,
but checks and balances.
Yes.
I like the alliance of the Hausas
yeah.
are very good in the middle, so they can balance the two. But the Hausas, the Fulani and the Canary will serve as a good counterweight to the South and Middle Belt. So together, they should form checks on each other so that no person overdoes, and they have common sense principles that work for the combined. But if you don't have, if the North can now divide the South within that, they say absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. So once you could do that, everyone suffers. Even in the North, the quality of leadership drops because it comes easy. There's no check on your power. So some of these things we have to be scientific about, not emotional. Whether it's just, does this make sense?
A lot
and
of
orchestrate
sense.
it and do what makes sense.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Right, so this is my last question, and we can call it a day. So you said in the 2023 election, you went with Peter Obi Same thing with your late father. And there was a bit of a sort of like a fraction. But yeah, majority would say Afenifere aligned with Peter Obi, right?
Yes.
For the same, maybe having similar value systems.
Well, justice, equity, and fairness. Peter
Yes.
was the turn of the East, and he
Yes,
seemed like
exactly.
the best candidate from
So
the East.
for that specific value system, moving forward, because you could equally see that the younger generation aligns with that, and the young is the future, right? We are growing older every day. We should take on power and all. Would you say that being, I could say you were very, very much aware of the build-up of the movement from 2022 to now moving forward. Would you still say the youth still hone that? Would you say we're still very much in control of that? And looking at it from your perspective, would you say, okay, this is what I think you guys should do better? This is what I think you guys should shy away from? All of that, just from somebody who has gained more experience and has
Right.
lived longer than me.
We need to work on it. That's the thing. When the reason, and that's actually why I'm here on the platform like this, what inspired me was the dynamism showed by the youth with NSAS. It was really, it gave me a lot of hope that, okay, I would sacrifice my life for these people, the younger generation. They're worth it.
Yeah.
They were idealists. That's the most idealist generation of
Yeah.
Nigerians. So I really don't want that light, that fire to die. A lot of it went into the obedient movement, if not all. But I think that movement hasn't been managed well enough
Okay.
to build upon, both in terms of, I mean, there needs to be more discipline around it, and it needs to have an ideology that rallies nationally. It needs to have a forward-looking ideology that brings the whole nation together. Hausa, you need to have an ideology of what we're fighting for.
Yep.
You know, that rallies people around one, and then it needs to, you know, like there has to be an educator that walks through the divides, and then obviously the discipline of structure. It can't just be hurling abuses and things like that gets you there. You have to know that the opposition is in the incentive to divide you, because it's just good strategy, and these people have experts on it. So when they put in triggers, don't fall for it and then abuse the next. Sometimes they plans. It's like playing football, and I know that you're their star player. Of course, if I foul you, I know you punch me or something, and I know that you get a red card. So you have to, like Zidane, he lost France the World Cup just because he gave someone help. So you have to have maturity to know when to pull back and know when this might just be provocative.
True.
And so there's just things like that I think need to be done. Again, I still think it's the time of the East. They need to figure out whether that's Peter Obi or someone else. And if they decide that, then I think he also needs to be more involved. I think he's a bit too detached. He needs to get more involved in building a team such that his feedback mechanism is more direct. I think he doesn't have enough feedback from all sides. He hears one thing and he probably wants to stay above that, and that's not good leadership. I was there. I've been at tables with Chief Awolowo. If you say something like, Ubong told me something, you say, can you say in front of him?
Yeah.
We have both sides, and
yeah.
then he resolves it.
Yeah.
So I think he needs to take a more active leadership and not just hearing things.
I'm not just trying to say, I'm not involved
Yeah,
in
let
this.
take care of itself.
I don't want to take a
Take care.
side.
You guys should try to manage it.
You have to bring, even if you don't solve it, you have to have a principle that you're applying, and it has to be democratic. Let's say, okay, this is what we've heard. You people go and vote on it. Even Awolowo had to back off when the majority of his party didn't want what he wanted to, but he made sure there was debate, there was consent, and he heard from, the key
There
thing
was
is just
an actual
hearing
conversation.
from all sides. And leadership is just like, you know what, the best way to sanitize that, sunlight is the biggest disinfectant.
I agree.
Bring it all in the open, let's talk about it, resolve it, then have proper structures. And it has, if it's to be opposition, like I said, it has a good opportunity right now, because obviously, like I said, the government hasn't done anything to me yet to win a second term, which is also a frustration, because I keep saying, if you're in government, you have no reason to rig anymore or do anything. Just perform. You know, you have the edge. You have the white ball behind the black ball. Just perform, and even all that opposition would fall away.
quell.
So However I want, it turns out I just want the best for Nigeria, but I think the opposition needs to do a better job lighting the fire up and showing they deserve to win. And if it's the government that wants to stay there, they too need to perform and show they can win, and hopefully we get a good outcome for the nation.
Right.
True.
Thank you.
This is the first time that somebody has come on this show and really said something that has touched me.
So the one I've been saying since.
No, in reference to Peter Obi, that's what I'm saying. Because a lot of people come to the show and say, "Oh, Peter Obi," and then someone has come to say, "Peter Obi, please,
You need to sit up a bit.
you need to sit up a
Yeah.
bit, get the act right, get this right." And I think that's why we're here.
I think it's important to
Yeah.
have conversations like that, so it
Yeah.
doesn't always look like we sort of give him a
give him
slap
like
on the wrist or a pat on the back all the
or
time.
saying,
Oh yeah,
come
he
up,
definitely needs
Yes.
to step
Yeah.
up.
Yes.
Have an ideology, cool platform, so that we're selling him. We know we're selling what his
Yeah.
program is.
Yes.
A little
And
bit of being
yeah,
firm
not
never
being
hurts
just a
anybody.
good guy is not good
Yeah.
enough.
It's not it. Yeah.
Doesn't
It's not
cut
it.
It's
You
not
have to
enough.
Fantastic. Thank you.
be a strict parent every now and then.
It's leadership. He needs
It
to lead.
is. It is. All right. So we are at the top of the hour. Thank you so much, Mr. Rex, for coming in. Thank you for being so passionate about the subject matter. Thank you for being so insightful. Thank you for your thought process. I really enjoyed it. And I hope you guys watching
I hope you do.
enjoy it. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Please subscribe. Please share. Please like. Please comment. And as I always say, share this with your ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, ex-friend, childhood friend. If you have pets, share this with your pets so that when they go on their next annual pets conference, they share it and it just keeps going on and on and on and on like that. And we will see you sooner than later. Bye.